Up north at 4. Joining us now is Kate Ferrel, the president over at Nicolet College. And Kate, the last couple of years have been incredible for you guys over at Nicolet. I want to say a 22% increase of enrollment. I mean, you've had so much going on, a lot of success recently. What's it been like for you to kind of lead the charge over there?
Well, so first of all, thank you so much for letting me come back.
Yes.
Great to see Theo again, and you gentlemen, of course. I'd have to say that the enrollment spike is really very indicative of the world sort of starting to normalize itself again. So, most colleges and universities across the country took a pretty dramatic hit when the pandemic hit. We were no different. We lost a lot of folks that didn't want to take the chance of attending school or had other things going on in their lives. So we are rebounding from that, and we are coming back, and we're coming back strong. And we just have some fantastic faculty, some fantastic staff that wrap their ever-loving arms around our students to help make them successful and get them across the finish line. So, really it's a product of just really amazing people, but also a few other things too are really systematic for us as well. We keep in touch with our employers through a process called advisory committees, where advisory committees meet several times a year with program faculty and staff, and we talk about what's going on in industry, and then we make sure we go back to R&D and we bring that into the curriculum just as quickly as we can. So the curriculum's really relevant and very influenced by those advisory committee members. Another area that I think has just been really incredible in terms of helping students, attract students, is just the strong financial support and the affordability that we represent at Nicolet College. So, those factors, along with really great foundation, really generous donors. We're putting a lot of things into place to help us come back from the pandemic, which is why you're seeing that increase.
Yeah, it feels like you're thriving. As someone who has been kind of keeping an eye on Nicolet for 5 or 6 years now in the community, it feels like you're thriving, and it feels like you're always one step ahead of the next coming trend, right? And you said employers, like 91% of recent graduates are employed in the labor force right now. That is a number that not all colleges can boast. Just across the board, the numbers are just off the charts in terms of comparing Nicolet with other colleges in similar fields. You're up here and they're kind of here. So I'm gonna ask you, yes, you have a great team around you, but how do you stay ahead of that curve? How do you know what's coming next?
Well, that's a really great question, because, we do invest in quite a bit of dialogue around innovation and talking about the future, and, with the folks who have futuristic strengths. We talk with those folks about, looking into our respective crystal balls, if you will, and seeing what might lie ahead. The other investment we've made is to get employees and even our students thinking very entrepreneurial as well. And entrepreneurs have this gift of identifying a problem and solving the problem. And that's what makes them really good entrepreneurs, is they know how to solve a problem. Well, we're trying to really engender that in a lot of what we do as well. So those two things, really, really rewarding and celebrating innovation across the institution has become a part of our fabric, along with, I think, really nurturing that entrepreneurial thinking amongst our students and our staff. I think help us get out ahead of things, perhaps.
The students feel your excitement for learning, and that's cool.
It's like a culture thing, and it just kind of helps build upon itself. And I find it interesting what you said. What did you say was the futuristic idea, futuristic thinking, right? And does that just kind of go back to those advisor committees and just seeing what they are seeing in the workforce and kind of how you can develop that in the classroom?
Yeah, this really is born out of an absolute imperative for agility and flexibility and adaptability, which, if the pandemic taught us nothing, we really needed to learn, and learned that you've got to be those three things if you're going to thrive and survive in any business or higher ed or anything. You know, I think the advisory committees really challenge us for that, because our employers, I mean, they've got to move on a dime. Talk about people who need to be flexible and agile, and that's who we serve. So we're really reflecting what it is that they need as far as support from Nicolet College.
Great. So I kind of want to expand on that idea a little bit, but we're going to be out of time. Do you mind sticking around with us after the break and chat a little more?
No problem.
All righty, we'll be right back here on Up North at 4. Stick with us. I got you. Welcome back to Up North at 4. We're joined by Kate Ferrel, the president over at Nicolet College. And Kate, Nicolet has just been booming over the past few months, few years. And before the break, you had mentioned a lot of your work that Nicolet does with local businesses, industry leaders, to kind of get feedback from them and kind of how you can adapt that into the classroom. And Jeff and I have sat down with many Chamber of Commerce directors over the past few months, and they say, you know, since the pandemic, a lot of industries have changed in being just more flexible, more adaptive to their workforce. You know, just people realizing, like, I want to spend more time with my family, because you never know what's going to happen, right? And so I think a lot of power kind of goes back to the workers a little bit. And obviously that changes the way the dynamic is in the workplace. How does that kind of shift into what you teach at Nicolet College, if at all? I don't know if that really pertains to you at Nicolet, but I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, I think, you know, that flexibility and adaptability, strategic priority really trickles down into the curriculum as well. I mean, like even this winter, we've pivoted to virtual learning a few times, so people need to be sort of ready for anything. And we think that is really reflective of what they're going to find in the workforce as well, in the workplace. You know, I think the other part of that we're stressing in the curriculum side of the house is just, you know, around learning to still provide value and repackage your value, even if you're, for instance, a remote worker. How do you thrive as a remote worker? People are picking up a lot of those skills as an online student. You know, they're learning how to communicate and express themselves in a virtual format. So yeah, there is definitely a parallel.
Okay, yeah.
You have some boasting to do, because there's some lot of great stats coming out of Nicolet right now. But the one that caught my eye the most was on the topic of brain drain, right? Where 88% of graduates are working and living in Wisconsin. That is saying something, because smaller communities have this thing called brain drain, where people get educated and they move on. Do you focus on this, or is this just a number that just happens?
Well, I think that metric is really reflective of the mission that we have, you know, to serve our local communities, our rural communities, or even our urban communities, with programming, with majors, with credentials, with micro-credentials, with short-term credentials that make sense for your region as well. So really, I mean, we are here, while we're never going to turn away an online student from some other country or state, we are always going to primarily serve our local workforce, and it's going to be with jobs that are available right locally. You know, filling the Trident jobs with welding, filling the Marshfield Clinic and the Aspirus jobs with associate degree nurses. So we are serving those local employers. So you know, we're getting people right back into the local workforce. So we tend to attract a student who likes to stay close to family, loves living in the Northwoods, loves the amenities. So we benefit. That number gets bolstered because of just some external circumstances, Jeff. But I am going to accept the accolades.
There we go.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
That's the showmanship coming out in Kate. I love it. We were talking, though, about some of the stats that you provided with us, and one that really jumped out to me was that about a quarter of your total student enrollment is students 30 years and older, which I'm not going to say older, because I know people out there are going to get upset with me for saying that, but they're not your typical college-aged student.
Right.
Do you think a lot of that is just people realizing, you know, I want to do something that excites me. I want to go get my degree in something that I want to be passionate in doing? Or is that just with Nicolet, with you guys offering so many more classes that people are picking up new hobbies and just getting involved? But was that like a concerted effort on your part to kind of draw in that demographic?
Yes, and you know, the high school population is shrinking, so you know, we needed to innovate and expand our product line, if you will, and figure out how is it that we could attract more adult learners who either had just some high school, maybe a little bit of college, but never finished. And there's quite a lot of those in our neck of the woods of those folks. So we, about 10 years ago, started to really innovate around online learning, and then eventually we forayed into telepresence learning, which was like television learning. You guys would have excelled in that for sure.
They would have gotten an A.
And then, you know, hybrid, you know, half on computer, half on, you know, Zoom or that sort of platform. And then also competency-based education, which is really, really small, chunked down competencies versus your full-blown 3-credit class. So all those things really appeal more to I just did it. The mature learner, the adult learner, who's working full-time, has a lot of responsibilities, leads a complicated, messy life. And, you know, we realized that we absolutely had to start producing a product where students could wrap education around their complicated lives versus that old model where we all went to college where you dropped everything. That was your job to go to college. It's not that way anymore. It simply isn't.
It's a different world. Things are evolving. Nicolet evolving with it as well, clearly with all the excellence you guys have seen over the last few months, few years. But Kate, we're out of time, unfortunately. I feel like we could sit and chat with you forever if we wanted to. We do appreciate you coming on today, and we wish you the best of luck with everything you got going on.
Thanks.
We are going to take a break, though, and up north at 4. Stick with us.